sorry I'm late again, but I'm sorry. Well, let me just check one thing and then we'll get started. I forgot to check it. See if my brother's here or not. No. What time did he leave? 5:21. Yeah, he doesn't come in the room no more when she's barking. Nope. I try to tell her, I'm like, no one wants to go near a dog that's barking like that. But we still love you. You know. Let's get the chat out. Well, the pizza I got last night, I should have been more specific because I says, feta and, spinach, no sauce. Yeah, well, they should have put cheese on it. And if they put cheese on it, they didn't put that much cheese on it. You know what I mean? Right, sit down. You gotta stay put. I got most of my soda. See? I ate most of my pizza. See, if we had sliced cheese, I'll be putting some cheese on that. And maybe a tad butter on with it. Because if you do that cheese, cut up your sliced cheese, you can probably, it'll probably melt better. Or, yeah. My mom used to keep mozzarella cheese in the fridge, in the freezer, the shredded one. Because one time we got pizza, there's hardly any cheese on it because we said just plain cheese. We were in the mood for cheese. Barely any cheese on that. And they said, well, you said just cheese. I went, yeah, but because you know how little cheese is on this thing? And it's barely cooked. The cheese still looked white. So you put some more milk cheese on it and put it in the oven. We had one of those pizza pans. It was round, so we put on that. And we put it in the oven. And he said, oh, you took it out. That's better. So let's get started. No, we did. Oh, no. Yeah, we kind of, deleted some pictures, and I deleted too many. Oh boy, okay. Our Father in heaven, may your name be kept holy. May your kingdom come soon. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Hold on. Give us today the food we need, and forgive us our sins, as we have forgiven those who sin against us. And don't let us yield to temptation, but rescue us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, Lord, for another beautiful day on your beautiful earth. And thank you for allowing us to wake up today. And thank you for what you did for us in the past, present, and what you will do for us in the future. Alright, now, Danielle needs your prayers for her physical strength. But I told her I'm gonna ask for mental strength as well. Okay? I don't know if she wants me to go through detail right now, so I won't. But I will tell Jehovah privately through detail. Okay? So please pray for Danielle for mental and physical strength for what she's going through. Okay? And continue to pray for Tate, Cindy Lee, Lisa, King Charles, Princess Kate, and Jen's friend Shannon, they all have cancer, different kinds, different stages, and Tate also has a heart condition, and Celine Dion has, stiff person syndrome, which includes seizures. So please wish them all, from Danielle all the way down to Celine Dion, for their medical issues, physical and mental strength to fight it off, and to get stronger and better than ever. And continue to help Jenny with her ailments, which she has quite a few. I've not heard from her in a while, so hopefully she's okay. And yes, I know I could talk to her too. I probably will message her after this. And Christina with her daughter and pregnant, please let her. I think it's her. It's someone named Christina asked me to pray for her daughter that's pregnant. So hopefully that pregnancy goes well. Tiffany with her boys. The oldest one was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So help him in everyday life. And his son, her youngest son, is showing traits of it. So please don't let that happen, Jehovah. Erase that from his mind. Get that out of his head. Robin Taylor with her ailments and private stuff that she's going through. I don't know what it is, so I can't say it because I don't know what it is. So give her mental and physical strength as well. Give them all mental and physical strength. Miss Ann and daughters, Arnie, Vicky and family, Carol and her mom. Give them all mental and physical strength to fight off what they're going through. In Jesus' name, amen. Yeah, I deleted pictures. Well, I have to find that picture now. That's the Lord's Prayer on it. I don't know where I got it from. Oh, wait. That's okay. I'll just go to it apart in a video, and I'll just pause it. Hopefully the pause sign won't be there. And then I'll screenshot it. No, we don't want YouTube. And play.
Judges, chapter 1. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites inquired of Jehovah,
"Who of us will go up first to fight against the Canaanites?"
Jehovah replied, "Judah will go up. Look, I am giving the land into his hand." Then Judah said to his brother Simeon,
"Come up with me into my assigned territory to fight against the Canaanites. Then I will go with you into your assigned territory."
So Simeon went with him. When Judah went up, Jehovah gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hands, and they defeated 10,000 men in Bezek. They found Adoni-Bezek in Bezek, and there they fought against him and defeated the Canaanites and the Perizzites. When Adoni-Bezek fled, they chased him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and his big toes. Then Adoni-Bezek said,
There are 70 kings whose thumbs and big toes were cut off, and who are picking up food under my table. Just as I have done, so God has repaid me.
After that, they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. Furthermore, the men of Judah fought against Jerusalem and captured it. They struck it with the sword and set the city on fire. Afterward, the men of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites inhabiting the mountainous region and the Negeb and the Shephelah. So Judah marched against the Canaanites who were dwelling in Hebron. The name of Hebron was previously Kiriath Arba, and they struck down Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. They marched from there against the inhabitants of Debir. The name of Debir was previously Kiriath Sepher. Then Caleb said,
To the man who Kiriath Sepher and captures it, I will give my daughter Aksa as a wife.
And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, captured it. So he gave him his daughter Aksa as a wife. While she was going home, she urged him to ask her father for a field. Then she dismounted from her donkey. Caleb asked her,
What do you want?
She said to him,
Please grant me a blessing, for you have given me a piece of land in the south. Give me also Galath-Maim.
So Caleb gave her Upper Galath and Lower Galath. And the descendants of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, came up from the city of palm trees with the people of Judah to the wilderness of Judah, south of Arad. They went there and settled among the people. But Judah marched on with his brother Simeon, and they attacked the Canaanites inhabiting Zephath and devoted it to destruction. So they named the city Hormah. Then Judah captured Gaza and its territory, Ashkelon and its territory, and Ekron and its territory. Jehovah was with Judah, and they took possession of the mountainous region, but they could not drive out the inhabitants of the plain, because they had war chariots with iron scythes. They gave Hebron to Caleb, just as Moses had promised, and he drove out from there the 3 sons of Anak. But the Benjaminites did not drive out the Jebusites inhabiting Jerusalem. So the Jebusites continued dwelling with the Benjaminites in Jerusalem down to this day. Meantime, the house of Joseph went up against Bethel, and Jehovah was with them. The house of Joseph was spying on Bethel. Incidentally, the name of the city was previously Luz. And the spies saw a man going out of the city. So they said to him,
Show us, please, the way into the city, and we will treat you kindly.
So the man showed them the way into the city, and they struck the city with the sword, but they let the man and all his family go free. The man went to the land of the Hittites, and built a city and named it Luz, which is its name to this day. Manasseh did not take possession of Beth-shean and its dependent towns, Taanach and its dependent towns, the inhabitants of Dor and its dependent towns, the inhabitants of Ibleam and its dependent towns, and the inhabitants of Megiddo and its dependent towns. The Canaanites persisted in dwelling in this land. When Israel grew stronger, they subjected the Canaanites to forced labor, but they did not drive them out completely. Nor did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites who were dwelling in Gezer. The Canaanites continued to dwell among them in Gezer. Zebulun did not drive out the inhabitants of Kitron and the inhabitants of Nahalol. The Canaanites continued to dwell among them and were subjected to forced labor. Asher did not drive out the inhabitants of Akko and the inhabitants of Sidon, Alab, Akzib, Helba, Aphik, and Rehob. So the Asherites continued to dwell among the Canaanites inhabiting the land, because they did not drive them out. Naphtali did not drive out the inhabitants of Beth-shemesh and the inhabitants of Beth-anath, but they continued to dwell among the Canaanites inhabiting the land. The inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath became forced laborers for them. The Amorites confined the Danites to the mountainous region, for they would not let them come down into the plain. So the Amorites persisted in dwelling in Mount Heres, Aijalon, and Shaalbim. But when the power of the house of Joseph increased, they were forced into hard labor. The territory of the Amorites was from the ascent of Akrabim, from Selah upward.
From where? Sela. Hey, that's my friend's name. See?
Chapter 2. Then Jehovah...
Did you hear Sela? Yeah. Alright. Yesterday on Kingdom Hall, my Kingdom Hall meeting, one of the people had a comment with Sela, and she was talking, and Ivy heard her, and it was her head went up, and she was looking for her. And so they just said the word Sela, different spelling, and she was sleeping in my arms, and her head went up and looking for Sela. I gotta tell her that too.
Angel went. Chapter 2. Then Jehovah's angel went up from Gilgal to Bochim and said,
I brought you up out of Egypt into the land about which I swore to your forefathers. Furthermore, I said, I will never break my covenant with you. For your part, you must not make a covenant with the inhabitants of this land, and you should pull down their altars. But you have not obeyed my voice. Why have you done this? That is why I also said, I will not drive them away from before you, and they will ensnare you, and their gods will lure you away.
When Jehovah's angel spoke these words to all the Israelites, the people began to weep loudly. So they named that place Bochim, and they sacrificed there to Jehovah. When Joshua sent the people away, each of the Israelites went to his inheritance to take possession of the land. The people continued to serve Jehovah all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, and who had seen all of Jehovah's great deeds in behalf of Israel. Then Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of Jehovah, died at the age of 110. So they buried him in the territory of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the mountainous region of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. All that generation were gathered to their ancestors, and another generation arose after them that did not know Jehovah or what he had done for Israel. So the Israelites did what was bad in the eyes of Jehovah, and served the Baals. Thus they abandoned Jehovah, the God of their fathers, who brought them out of the land of Egypt. And they followed other gods, the gods of the peoples who were all around them, and they bowed down to them and offended Jehovah. They abandoned Jehovah and served Baal and the Ashtoreth images. At this, Jehovah's anger blazed against Israel, so he handed them over to plunderers who pillaged them. He sold them into the hand of the enemies around them, and they were no longer able to hold their own against their enemies. Wherever they went, the hand of Jehovah was against them, bringing disaster on them, just as Jehovah had said, and just as Jehovah had sworn to them, and they were in great distress. So Jehovah would raise up judges who would save them from the hand of their plunderers. But they refused to listen even to the judges, and would prostitute themselves to other gods and bow down to them. They quickly turned aside from the way in which their forefathers had walked, those who had obeyed the commandments of Jehovah. They failed to do that. Whenever Jehovah did raise up judges for them, Jehovah would be with the judge and save them from the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For Jehovah was moved to pity over their groaning, caused by those who oppressed them and those who were treating them abusively. But when the judge died, they would again act more corruptly than their fathers, by following other gods, serving them, and bowing down to them. They did not abandon their practices and their stubborn behavior. Finally, Jehovah's anger blazed against Israel, and he said, "Because this nation has violated my covenant that I commanded their forefathers, and they have disobeyed me, I, for my part, will not drive out from before them even one of the nations that Joshua left behind when he died. This is to test whether Israel will keep Jehovah's way by walking in it as their fathers did." So Jehovah allowed these nations to remain. He did not drive them out quickly, and he did not give them into Joshua's hand.
Yeah, good girl.
Chapter 3. These are the nations that Jehovah allowed to remain, so that they could test all those of Israel who had not experienced any of the wars of Canaan. This was so that succeeding generations of Israelites would experience war, those who had not experienced such things before. The 5 lords of the Philistines, the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites inhabiting Mount Lebanon from Mount Baal Hermon as far as Lebo Hamath. They served as means of testing Israel to determine whether Israel would obey Jehovah's commandments that he had given their fathers through Moses. So the Israelites lived among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. They would take their daughters as wives, and their own daughters they gave to their sons, and they began serving their gods. So the Israelites did what was bad in Jehovah's eyes, and they forgot Jehovah their God, and were serving the Baals and the bulls. At this, Jehovah's anger blazed against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan-Rishathaim, the king of Mesopotamia. The Israelites served Cushan-Rishathaim for 8 years. When the Israelites called to Jehovah for help, Jehovah raised up a savior to rescue the Israelites, Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the younger brother of Caleb. The Spirit of Jehovah came upon him, and he became the judge of Israel. When he went out to battle, Jehovah gave Cushan-Rishathaim, the king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, so that he prevailed over Cushan-Rishathaim. After that, the land had rest for 40 years. Then Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. And once again, the Israelites began doing what was bad in Jehovah's eyes. So Jehovah let Eglon, the king of Moab, prevail over Israel, because they did what was bad in Jehovah's eyes. Furthermore, he brought against them the Ammonites and the Amalekites. They attacked Israel and captured the city of palm trees. The Israelites served Eglon, the king of Moab, for 18 years. Then the Israelites called to Jehovah for help. So Jehovah raised up for them a savior, Ehud, the son of Gera, a Benjaminite who was left-handed. In time, the Israelites sent tribute through him to Eglon, the king of Moab. Meanwhile, Ehud made for himself a 2-edged sword, a cubit long, and he strapped it underneath his garment, on his right thigh. He then presented the tribute to Eglon, the king of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man. When Ehud finished presenting the tribute, he sent away the people who had carried the tribute. But after reaching the carved images at Gilgal, he himself went back and said,
I have a secret message for you, O king.
So the king said,
Silence.
With that, all his attendants left him. So Ehud came to him as he was sitting alone in his cool roof chamber. Then Ehud said,
I have a message from God for you.
So he rose up from his throne. Then Ehud drew the sword from his right thigh with his left hand and plunged it into his belly. The handle went in after the blade, and the fat closed in over the blade, for he did not draw the sword out of his belly. And the fecal matter came out.
Ew.
Ehud went out through the porch, closing the doors of the roof chamber behind him and locking them, and saw that the doors of the roof chamber were locked. So they said,
He must be relieving himself in the cool interior room.
They kept waiting until they were embarrassed. But when they saw that he was still not opening the doors of the roof chamber, they took the key and opened them, and saw their Lord fallen to the floor, dead. Ehud escaped while they were lingering, and he passed by the carved images and made it safely to Seirah. When he arrived, he sounded the horn in the mountainous region of Ephraim, and the Israelites went down out of the mountainous region with him at their head. Then he said to them,
Follow me, because Jehovah has given your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand.
So they followed him and captured the fords of the Jordan against the Moabites, and they did not allow anyone to cross. At that time they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all strong and valiant men. Not a single one escaped. So Moab was subdued on that day under Israel's hand, and the land had rest for 80 years. After him was Shamgar the son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistine men with a cattle goad. He too saved Israel.
Wow.
Chapter 4. But after Ehud died, the Israelites again did what was bad in Jehovah's eyes. So Jehovah sold them into the hand of Jabin, the king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The chief of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth of the nations. The Israelites cried out to Jehovah, because Jabin had 900 war chariots with iron scythes, and he harshly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. She used to sit under Deborah's palm tree between Ramah and Bethel, in the mountainous region of Ephraim. The Israelites would go up to her for judgment. She sent for Barak, the son of Abinoam, out of Kedesh Naphtali, and said to him,
Has not Jehovah, the God of Israel, given the command? Go and march to Mount Tabor, and take 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun with you. I will bring to you Sisera, the chief of Jabin's army, along with his war chariots and his troops to the stream of Kishon, and I will give him into your hand.
At this, Barak said to her,
If you go with me, I will go. But if you do not go with me, I will not go.
To this she said,
I will certainly go with you. However, the campaign you are going on will not bring you glory, for it will be into the hand of a woman that Jehovah will give Sisera.
Then Deborah got up and went with Barak to Kedesh. Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali to Kedesh, and 10,000 men followed his steps. Deborah also went up with him. Incidentally, Heber the Kenite had separated from the Kenites, the descendants of Hobab, Moses' father-in-law, and his tent was pitched near the big tree in Zaananim, which is at Kedesh. They reported to Sisera that Barak, the son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor. At once, Sisera assembled all his war chariots, 900 chariots with iron scythes, and all the troops that were with him from Harosheth of the nations to go to the stream of Kishon. Deborah now said to Barak,
Rise up, for this is the day that Jehovah will give Sisera into your hand. Is Jehovah not going out before you?
And Barak descended from Mount Tabor, with 10,000 men following him. Then Jehovah threw Sisera and all his war chariots and all the army into confusion before the sword of Barak. Finally, Sisera got down from his chariot and fled on foot. Barak chased after the war chariots and the army as far as Harosheth of the nations. So Sisera's whole army fell by the sword. Not even one remained. But Sisera fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was peace between Jabin, the king of Hazor, and the house of Heber the Kenite. Then Jael came out to meet Sisera, and said to him,
Come in, my lord. Come in here. Do not be afraid.
So he went into her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. Then he said to her,
Give me, please, a little water to drink, for I am thirsty.
So she opened a skin bottle of milk and gave him a drink, after which she again covered him. He told her,
Stand at the entrance of the tent, and if anybody comes and asks you, is there a man here? Say no.
But Jael, the wife of Heber, took a tent pin and a hammer in her hand. Then, while he was fast asleep and exhausted, she stealthily approached him and drove the pin through his temples and beat it into the ground, and he died. Barak went there in pursuit of Sisera, and Jael now came out to meet him and said,
Come, and I will show you the man you are looking for.
He went in with her and saw Sisera lying dead with the tent pin through his temples. So on that day, God subdued Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the Israelites. The hand of the Israelites came down harder and harder against Jabin, the king of Canaan, until they destroyed Jabin, the king of Canaan. Chapter 5. On that day, Deborah, along with Barak, the son of Abinoam, sang this song.
Because of the unbound hair in Israel, because of the people's volunteering, praise Jehovah.
Listen, you kings. Give ear, you rulers.
To Jehovah I will sing.
I will sing praises to Jehovah, Israel's God.
Jehovah, when you went out from Seir, when you marched out of the territory of Edom, the earth shook and the heavens poured.
The clouds poured down water.
Mountains melted before the face of Jehovah.
Even Sinai before the face of Jehovah, Israel's God.
In the days of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the roads were deserted.
Travelers kept to the back roads. The villagers in Israel were no more.
They were no more until I, Deborah, rose up, until I arose as a mother in Israel. They chose new gods.
Then there was war in the gates. A shield could not be seen, nor a lance, among 40,000 in Israel.
My heart is with the commanders of Israel, who went as volunteers with the people. Praise Jehovah.
You riders on tawny donkeys, you who sit on fine carpets, and you who walk on the road, consider.
The voices of the water distributors were heard at the watering places. There they were recounting the righteous acts of Jehovah, the righteous acts of his villagers in Israel. Then Jehovah's people went down to the gates.
Awake, awake, O Deborah. Awake, awake. Sing a song.
Rise up, Barak. Lead your captives away, you son of Abinoam.
Then those who were left came down to the nobles. Jehovah's people came down to me against the mighty.
Out of Ephraim was their origin, those in the valley. They are following you, O Benjamin, among your peoples.
From Machir, the commanders went down, and from Zebulun, those who bear the recruiter's staff. The princes in Issachar were with Deborah.
As was Issachar, so was Barak. Into the valley plain he was sent on foot.
Among the divisions of Reuben, there was intense heart-searching. Why did you sit down between the two saddlebags, listening to them playing their pipes for the flocks?
For the divisions of Reuben, there was intense heart-searching.
Gilead remained beyond the Jordan. And Dan, why did he stay with the ships?
Asher sat idle at the seashore, and by his harbors he remained.
Zebulun was a people who risked their lives to the point of death. Naphtali also on the open heights.
Kings came, they fought. The kings of Canaan then fought.
In Taanach, by the waters of Megiddo, no spoil of silver did they take.
From heaven the stars fought. From their orbits they fought against Sisera.
The torrent of Kishon washed them away. The ancient torrent, the torrent of Kishon. You trampled down the powerful, O my soul.
Then the hooves of horses pounded as his stallions galloped furiously.
Curse Meroz, said the angel of Jehovah. Yes, curse its inhabitants, for they did not come to the assistance of Jehovah, to the assistance of Jehovah with the mighty ones.
Most blessed of women is Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. She is most blessed of women living in tents.
He asked for water. She gave him milk. In a majestic banquet bowl, she offered curdled milk.
With her hand, she reached for the tent pin, her right hand for the workman's mallet.
And she hammered Sisera. She crushed his head, and she smashed and pierced his temples.
Between her feet, he collapsed. He fell and lay still.
Between her feet, he collapsed and fell.
Where he collapsed, there he fell, defeated.
From the window, a woman looked out. Sisera's mother peered out from the lattice.
Why is his chariot delayed in coming? Why are the hoofbeats of his chariot so late?
The wisest of her noble ladies would answer her. Yes, she too would repeat to herself,
They must be dividing the spoil they found. A girl, 2 girls, to every warrior. Spoil of dyed cloth for Sisera, spoil of dyed cloth. An embroidered garment, dyed cloth. 2 embroidered garments for the necks of the plunderers.
So let all your enemies perish, O Jehovah.
But let those who love you be like the sun, rising in its glory.
And the land had rest for 40 years. Chapter 6. But the Israelites again did what was bad in the eyes of Jehovah. So Jehovah gave them into the hand of Midian for 7 years. The hand of Midian dominated over Israel. Because of Midian, the Israelites made hiding places for themselves in the mountains, in the caves, and in the places difficult to approach.
I'm pausing this because she has to go out to go potty, and this doesn't scroll, so you'll be missing unless, I don't know. I'll be right back. Okay. We're all set.
Israel sowed seed, Midian and Amalek and the Easterners would attack them. They would camp against them and ruin the produce of the land all the way to Gaza, and they left nothing for Israel to eat, and no sheep or bull or donkey. For they would come up with their livestock in tents as numerous as the locusts, and they and their camels could not be numbered, and they would come into the land to destroy it. So Israel became greatly impoverished on account of Midian, and the Israelites called to Jehovah for help. When the Israelites called to Jehovah for help because of Midian, Jehovah sent to the Israelites a prophet who said to them,
"This is what Jehovah, the God of Israel, says. I brought you up from Egypt, and thus brought you out of the house of slavery. So I rescued you from the hand of Egypt, and from all your oppressors, and drove them out from before you, and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am Jehovah your God. You must not fear the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are dwelling. But you did not obey me."
Later, Jehovah's angel came and sat under the big tree that was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite. His son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress in order to hide it from Midian. Jehovah's angel appeared to him and said,
"Jehovah is with you, you mighty warrior."
At this, Gideon said to him,
"Pardon me, my lord, but if Jehovah is with us, why has all of this come upon us? Where are all his wonderful acts that our fathers related to us, saying, 'Did Jehovah not bring us up out of Egypt?' Now Jehovah has deserted us and given us into Midian's hand."
Jehovah faced him and said,
"Go with the strength you have, and you will save Israel out of Midian's hand. Is it not I who send you?"
Gideon answered him,
"Pardon me, Jehovah. How can I save Israel? Look, my clan is the least in Manasseh, and I am the most insignificant in my father's house."
But Jehovah said to him,
"Because I will be with you, you will strike down Midian as if they were one man."
Then he said to him,
"If now I have found favor in your eyes, show me a sign that you are the one speaking with me. Please do not depart from here until I return with my gift and set it before you."
So he said,
"I will stay here until you return."
And Gideon went in and prepared a young goat and made unleavened bread from an ephah of flour. He put the meat in the basket and the broth in the cooking pot. Then he brought them out to him and served them under the big tree. The angel of the true God now said to him,
"Take the meat and the unleavened bread and place them on the big rock there, and pour out the broth."
And he did so. Then Jehovah's angel stretched out the tip of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread, and fire flared up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. Jehovah's angel then vanished from his sight. Gideon now realized that it was Jehovah's angel. At once Gideon said,
"Alas, sovereign Lord Jehovah, for I have seen Jehovah's angel face to face."
But Jehovah said to him,
"Peace be with you. Have no fear. You will not die."
So Gideon built an altar there to Jehovah, and it is called Jehovah Shalom down to this day. It is still in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. That night Jehovah said to him,
"Take the young bull that belongs to your father, the second young bull that is 7 years old, and tear down the altar of Baal that belongs to your father, and cut down the sacred pole next to it. After you build an altar to Jehovah your God on top of this stronghold with the row of stones, take the second young bull and offer it as a burnt offering on the pieces of wood from the sacred pole that you cut down."
So Gideon took 10 men of his servants and did just as Jehovah told him. But he feared the household of his father and the men of the city too much to do it by day, so he did it at night. When the men of the city got up early the next morning, they saw that the altar of Baal had been pulled down, and the sacred pole beside it had been cut down, and the second young bull had been offered up on the altar that had been built. They asked one another,
"Who did this?"
After they investigated, they said,
"Gideon, the son of Joash, did this."
So the men of the city said to Joash,
"Bring your son out that he may die, because he pulled down the altar of Baal and cut down the sacred pole next to it."
Joash then said to all those who confronted him,
"Do you have to defend Baal? Do you have to save him? Whoever defends him should be put to death this morning. If he is a god, let him defend himself, since someone pulled down his altar."
And he called Gideon Jerubbaal on that day, saying,
"Let Baal defend himself, for someone has pulled down his altar."
All Midian and Amalek and the Easterners joined forces, and they crossed over into the valley of Jezreel and camped. Then Jehovah's Spirit came upon Gideon, and he sounded the horn, and the Abiezrites rallied behind him. He sent out messengers through all of Manasseh, and they too rallied behind him. He also sent out messengers through Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, and they came up to meet him. Then Gideon said to the true God,
"If you are saving Israel by means of me, just as you have promised, here I am laying a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece only, but all the ground around it is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by means of me, just as you have promised."
And that is how it happened. When he rose up early the next day and wrung the fleece, he squeezed off enough dew from the fleece to fill a large banquet bowl with water. However, Gideon said to the true God,
"Do not let your anger burn against me, but let me ask just once more. Let me please make just one more test with the fleece. Please let the fleece alone be dry, while there is dew all over the ground."
So that is what God did that night. Only the fleece was dry, and there was dew all over the ground. Chapter 7. Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people with him rose early and encamped at the spring of Harod, while the camp of Midian was north of him at the hill of Moreh in the valley plain. Jehovah now said to Gideon, "There are too many people with you for me to give Midian into their hand. Otherwise, Israel might brag about itself against me and say, 'My own hand saved me.' Now please announce in the presence of the people, 'Whoever is afraid and trembling, let him return home.'" So Gideon put them to the test. With that, 22,000 of the people returned home, and 10,000 remained. Still, Jehovah said to Gideon, "There are yet too many people. Have them go down to the water, so that I may test them for you there. When I say to you, 'This one will go with you,' he will go with you. But when I say to you, 'This one will not go along with you,' he will not go along." So he took the people down to the water. Then Jehovah said to Gideon, "Separate everyone who laps up the water with his tongue, just as a dog laps, from those who bend down on their back." The number of those lapping up the water, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300 men. The rest of the people bent down on their knees to drink. Jehovah now said to Gideon, "I will save you with the 300 men who lapped the water, and I will give Midian into your hand. But let all the other people go back home." So after they took the provisions and the horns from the people, he sent all the other men of Israel back home, and he kept only the 300 men. The camp of Midian was below him in the valley plain. During that night, Jehovah said to him, "Get up, attack the camp, for I have given it into your hand. But if you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with Purah, your attendant. Listen to what they say, and afterward you will have the courage to attack the camp." At that, he and Purah, his attendant, went down to the edge of the encamped army. Now Midian and Amalek and all the Easterners covered the valley plain like a swarm of locusts, and their camels were without number, as many as the grains of sand on the seashore. Gideon now came, and there was a man relating a dream to his companion. And he said,
"This is the dream I had. There was a round loaf of barley bread rolling into the camp of Midian. It came to a tent and struck it so hard that it collapsed. Yes, it turned the tent upside down, and the tent fell flat."
At this his companion said,
"This can only be the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given Midian and all the camp into his hand."
As soon as Gideon heard him relate the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down to worship. After that he returned to the camp of Israel and said,
"Get up, for Jehovah has given the camp of Midian into your hand."
Then he divided the 300 men into 3 bands, and gave all of them horns and large empty jars with torches inside the jars. Then he said to them,
"Watch me and do exactly what I do. When I come to the edge of the camp, you should do just as I do. When I blow the horn, I and all who are with me, you also must blow the horns all around the camp and shout for Jehovah and for Gideon."
Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the edge of the camp at the start of the middle night watch, just after the sentries were posted. They blew the horns and smashed the large water jars that were in their hands. So the 3 bands blew the horns and shattered the large jars. They held the torches in their left hands and blew the horns in their right hands. And they called out,
"The sword of Jehovah and of Gideon."
All the while each man stood in his place all around the camp, and the whole army ran away, shouting as they fled. The 300 continued to blow the horns, and Jehovah turned the sword of each one against the other throughout the camp. And the army fled as far as Beth-shittah on to Zererah, as far as the outskirts of Abel-Maholah by Tabith. And the men of Israel were called together from Naphtali, Asher, and all of Manasseh, and they chased after Midian. Gideon sent messengers into all the mountainous region of Ephraim, saying,
"Go down to attack Midian and capture the access to the waters as far as Beth-barah and the Jordan."
So all the men of Ephraim were gathered together, and they captured the waters as far as Beth-barah and the Jordan. They also captured the 2 princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeeb. They killed Oreb on the rock of Oreb, and they killed Zeeb at the winepress of Zeeb. They kept on pursuing Midian, and they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeeb to Gideon in the region of the Jordan. Chapter 8. Then the men of Ephraim said to him,
"What have you done to us?
Why did you not call us when you went to fight against Midian?"
And they quarreled bitterly with him. But he said to them,
"What have I done compared with you? Are not the gleanings of Ephraim better than the grape harvest of Abiezer? It was into your hand that God gave Midian's princes Oreb and Zeeb, and what have I done compared with you?"
When he spoke this way, they calmed down. Gideon then came to the Jordan and crossed it. He and the 300 men with him were tired, but they kept up the pursuit. So he said to the men of Succoth,
"Please give loaves of bread to the people following me, for they are tired, and I am chasing after Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian."
But the princes of Succoth said,
Are the palms of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, so that we should give bread to your army?
At this, Gideon said,
Just for that, when Jehovah gives Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will give you a thrashing with the thorns and the briars of the wilderness.
And he went up from there to Penuel and made the same request. But the men of Penuel gave him the same answer as the men of Succoth. So he said also to the men of Penuel,
When I return in peace, I will pull down this tower.
Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor with their armies, about 15,000 men. These were all who remained of the entire army of the Easterners, for 120,000 men armed with swords had fallen. Gideon continued up by the way of the tent dwellers east of Nobah and Jogbehah, and attacked the camp, which was off guard. When Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued and captured the two Midianite kings, Zebah and Zalmunna, throwing the whole camp into a panic. Gideon, the son of Joash, then returned from the war by way of the pass that goes up to Heres. En route, he captured and interrogated a young man from Succoth. So the young man wrote out for him the names of the princes and elders of Succoth, 77 men. With that, he went to the men of Succoth and said,
Here are Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you taunted me, saying, Are the palms of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, so that we should give bread to your exhausted men?
Then he took the elders of the city, and with thorns and briars of the wilderness, he taught the men of Succoth a lesson. And he pulled down the tower of Penuel, and killed the men of the city. He asked Zebah and Zalmunna,
What sort of men did you kill in Tabor?
To this they said,
They were like you. Each one looked like the son of a king.
At that he said,
They were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As surely as Jehovah lives, if you had spared their lives, I'd kill you.
Then he said to Jether, his firstborn,
Get up, kill them.
But the young man did not draw his sword. He was afraid, for he was still a young man. So Zebah and Zalmunna said,
Get up yourself and slay us, for a man is judged by his mightiness.
So Gideon got up and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and took the crescent-shaped ornaments that were on the necks of their camels. Later the men of Israel said to Gideon,
Rule over us, you and your son and your grandson as well, for you saved us out of the hand of Midian.
But Gideon said to them,
I will not rule over you, nor will my son rule over you. Jehovah is the one who will rule over you.
Gideon continued,
Let me make one request of you, that each of you give me a nose ring from his spoil.
For they had gold nose rings because they were Ishmaelites. They replied,
We will surely give them.
With that, they spread out a robe, and each man threw a nose ring from his spoil on it. The weight of the gold nose rings that he had requested amounted to 1,700 gold shekels, besides the crescent-shaped ornaments, the pendants, the purple wool garments worn by the kings of Midian, and the necklaces from the camels. Gideon made it into an ephod and exhibited it in his city, Ophrah. And all Israel committed spiritual prostitution with it there, and it served as a snare to Gideon and to his household. Thus Midian was subdued before the Israelites, and they did not challenge them again. And the land had rest for 40 years in the days of Gideon. So Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, returned to his home and stayed there. Gideon became father to 70 sons, for he had many wives. His concubine in Shechem also bore him a son, and he named him Abimelech. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died at a good old age, and was buried in the tomb of Joash his father, in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. As soon as Gideon died, the Israelites again committed spiritual prostitution with the Baals, and they appointed Baal Berith as their god. The Israelites did not remember Jehovah their God, who had rescued them from the hand of all their enemies around them. Nor did they show loyal love toward the household of Jerubbaal, that is, Gideon, in return for all the good that he had done for Israel. Chapter 9. In time, Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, went to his mother's brothers in Shechem, and he said to them and to all the family of his grandfather,
"Please ask all the leaders of Shechem, which is better for you? For all 70 sons of Jerubbaal to rule over you, or for one man to rule over you? And remember that I am your own bone and flesh."
So his mother's brothers said this in his behalf to all the leaders of Shechem, and their hearts were inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said,
"He is our own brother."
Then they gave him 70 pieces of silver from the house of Baal Berith, and Abimelech used it to hire idle and insolent men to accompany him. After that, he went to his father's house at Ophrah, and killed his brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal, 70 men on one stone. The only survivor was Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, because he hid. Then all the leaders of Shechem and all Beth Millo gathered together and made Abimelech king, close by the big tree, by the pillar that was in Shechem. When they reported it to Jotham, he at once went and stood on the top of Mount Gerizim and called out in a loud voice to them,
"Listen to me, you leaders of Shechem, and then God will listen to you. Once there were trees that went to anoint a king over them. So they said to the olive tree, 'Rule over us.' But the olive tree said to them, 'Must I give up my oil, which they use to glorify God and men, to go and wave over the other trees?' Then the tree said to the fig tree, 'Come and rule over us.' But the fig tree said to them, 'Must I give up my sweetness and my good fruitage to go and wave over the other trees?' Next, the tree said to the vine, 'Come and rule over us.' The vine replied to them, 'Must I give up my new wine that makes God and men rejoice to go and wave over the trees?' Finally, all the other trees said to the bramble, 'Come and rule over us.' At this, the bramble said to the trees, 'If you are really anointing me as king over you, come and seek refuge under my shadow. But if not, let fire come out of the bramble and consume the cedars of Lebanon.' Now have you acted sincerely and honorably in making Abimelech king? And have you shown goodness toward Jerubbaal and his household? And have you treated him as he deserves? When my father fought for you, he risked his life to save you from Midian's hand. But today you have risen up against my father's household and killed his sons, 70 men, on one stone. Then you made Abimelech, the son of his slave girl, king over the leaders of Shechem, just because he is your brother. Yes, if you are acting sincerely and honorably toward Jerubbaal and his household this day, rejoice over Abimelech, and let him also rejoice over you. But if not, may fire come out of Abimelech and consume the leaders of Shechem and Beth Millo. And may fire come out of the leaders of Shechem and Beth Millo and consume Abimelech."
Then Jotham fled and escaped to Beer, and he lived there because of his brother Abimelech. Abimelech ruled over Israel for 3 years. Then God let hostility develop between Abimelech and the leaders of Shechem, and they dealt treacherously with Abimelech. This was so that the violence done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal might be avenged, so as to place responsibility for their blood on their brother Abimelech for killing them, and on the leaders of Shechem for helping him to kill his brothers. So the leaders of Shechem set men to ambush him on the mountaintops, and they would rob everyone who passed by them on the road. In time, it was reported to Abimelech. Then Gaal, son of Ebed, and his brothers crossed over into Shechem, and the leaders of Shechem put their trust in him. They went out into the field and gathered the herds, trod them out, and held a festival, after which they went into the house of their God and ate and drank and cursed Abimelech. Then Gaal, the son of Ebed, said,
"Who is Abimelech, and who is Shechem that we should serve him? Is he not the son of Jerubbaal? And is not Zebul his commissioner? Serve the men of Hamor, Shechem's father. But why should we serve him? If only this people were under my command, I would depose Abimelech."
Then he said to Abimelech,
"Increase your army and come out."
When Zebul, the prince of the city, heard the words of Gaal, the son of Ebed, his anger blazed. So he secretly sent messengers to Abimelech, saying,
"Look, Gaal, the son of Ebed, and his brothers are now in Shechem, and here they are inciting the city against you. Now come up by night, you and your men, and lie in wait in the field. As soon as the sun rises in the morning, you should get up early and attack the city. And when he and his men come out against you, do whatever you can to defeat him."
So Abimelech and all the people with him rose up by night, and in 4 bands they lay in wait against Shechem. When Gaal, the son of Ebed, went out and stood at the entrance of the city gate, Abimelech and the people with him rose in the ambush. When Gaal saw the people, he said to Zebul,
"Look, there are people coming down from the mountaintops."
But Zebul said to him,
"You are seeing the shadows of the mountains, as if they were men."
Gaal later said,
"Look, people are coming down from the center of the land, and one band is coming by the way of the big tree of Meonanim."
Zebul replied to him,
"Where now is your boast? Who is Abimelech that we should serve him? Are these not the people you rejected? Go out now and fight against them."
So Gaal went out at the head of the leaders of Shechem and fought against Abimelech. Abimelech pursued him, and Gaal fled from him, and many fell slain as far as the entrance of the city gate. And Abimelech continued to dwell in Arumah, and Zebul drove Gaal and his brothers out of Shechem. The next day, the people went out into the field, and Abimelech was told about it. So he took the people and divided them into 3 bands, and struck them down. Abimelech and the bands with him charged forward and took a position at the entrance of the city gate, while 2 bands attacked all who were in the field, and they struck them down. Abimelech fought against the city all that day and captured it. He killed the people in it, and then he pulled the city down and sowed it with salt. When all the leaders of the tower of Shechem heard about this, they immediately went to the vault of the house of El-Berith. As soon as it was reported to Abimelech that all the leaders of the tower of Shechem had gathered together, Abimelech and all the men with him went up to Mount Zalmon. Abimelech took an axe in his hand and cut off a tree branch and lifted it on his shoulder and said to the people with him,
"What you saw me do, hurry and do the same."
So all the people also cut off branches and followed Abimelech. Then they put the branches against the vault and set the vault on fire. So all the people of the tower of Shechem also died, about 1,000 men and women. Abimelech then went to Thebez. He camped against Thebez and captured it. There was a strong tower in the middle of the city, and all the men and women and all the city leaders fled there. They shut themselves in and climbed onto the roof of the tower. Abimelech made his way to the tower and attacked it. He approached the entrance of the tower to set it on fire. Then one of the women dropped an upper millstone on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. He quickly called the attendant bearing his weapons and said to him,
"Draw your sword and put me to death, so that they may not say about me, 'A woman killed him.'"
So his attendant ran him through, and he died. When the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they all went back home. Thus God repaid Abimelech for the evil that he had done to his father by killing his 70 brothers. God also made all the evil of the men of Shechem come back on their own heads. So the curse of Jotham, the son of Jerubbaal, came upon them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chapter 10. After Abimelech, Tola, the son of Puah, the son of Dodo, a man of Issachar, rose up to save Israel. He lived in Shamir in the mountainous region of Ephraim. He judged Israel for 23 years. Then he died and was buried in Shamir. After him, Jair the Gileadite rose up and judged Israel for 22 years. He had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys, and they had 30 cities, which to this day are called Havoth Jair. They are in the land of Gilead. After that, Jair died and was buried in Camon. Again the Israelites did what was bad in the eyes of Jehovah, and they began to serve the Baals, the Ashereth images, the gods of Aram, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the Ammonites, and the gods of the Philistines. They abandoned Jehovah and did not serve him. Then Jehovah's anger blazed against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and the Ammonites. So they crushed and greatly oppressed the Israelites in that year. For 18 years they oppressed all the Israelites on the side of the Jordan that had been the land of the Amorites in Gilead. The Ammonites would also cross the Jordan to fight against Judah and Benjamin and the house of Ephraim, and Israel was greatly distressed. Then the Israelites called to Jehovah for help, saying,
"We have sinned against you, for we abandoned our God and served the Baals."
But Jehovah said to the Israelites, "Did I not save you from Egypt and from the Amorites, the Ammonites, the Philistines, the Sidonians, Amalek, and Midian when they oppressed you? When you cried out to me, I saved you out of their hand. But you abandoned me and served other gods. That is why I will not save you again. Go to the gods whom you have chosen and call for help. Let them save you in your time of distress." But the Israelites said to Jehovah,
"We have sinned. Do to us whatever is good in your eyes. Only save us, please, this day."
And they removed the foreign gods from their midst and served Jehovah, so that he could no longer tolerate Israel's suffering. In time the Ammonites were called together, and they pitched camp in Gilead. So the Israelites gathered together and pitched camp in Mizpah. The people and the princes of Gilead said to one another,
"Who will take the lead in fighting against the Ammonites? Let him become the chief over all the inhabitants of Gilead."
And that's going to be it for today. Yep. Dog is out of here. Yep, that's going to be it for today. I'll be live later on with, probably coloring. I don't know what, but coloring. So I love you guys. Love, don't judge.